Welcome back to Threads of Truth, where real-life mysteries meet internet speculation.
And where we try to find the solid ground in cases that are just full of holes, cases where the evidence itself seems to contradict the human experience.
That's a great way to put it. Today, we're going to explore a case that is just profoundly defined by that contradiction. We have one of the most terrifying pieces of audio evidence you could imagine.
Pure terror.
Pure documented terror. But then you have the physical world, the crime scene, which is just silent. It tells a completely different story.
Exactly. And that's the fracture point. Lauren Thompson's case is this incredible and incredibly tragic example of what happens when fear is the primary evidence. Timelines shatter, witness statements feel unreliable from the start, and you're left with this huge vacuum that gets filled with theory instead of fact.
Okay, let's unpack this carefully.
Yeah.
We are looking at the disappearance and the subsequent death investigation of Lauren Thompson. She's a 32-year-old mother of three who vanished in the deep woods of East Texas back in January 2019.
And the entire mystery really hinges on one central question. Was the threat she was running from real and physical something you could see and touch?
Or was it something internal?
Yeah.
A psychological threat that was just as deadly.
And that is the conflict. It all starts with this chilling 20-minute plus 911 call. A woman is on the line. She says she's being chased. She says they're shooting at her. It's vivid. It's horrifying.
And then nothing.
And then nothing. Authorities get to the scene and find no shell casings, no footprints of pursuers, no evidence that any of what she described actually happened in the physical world. You have a ghost scenario. The fear is real, but the attackers are phantoms.
So to even begin to understand this, you really have to appreciate the setting. This isn't a suburban street. This is Panola County, Texas, the Rock Hill area.
It's remote. I mean, truly remote.
We're talking dense East Texas woods, the kind of place where it's easy to get lost, where help is a long way away, and the landscape itself is an obstacle.
That setting is so critical because it immediately establishes this intense vulnerability. You are isolated out there. And that's where the incident begins. Lauren Thompson's car gets what's called high-centered.
Which basically just means it's stuck, right? The chassis is resting on the ground. The wheels can't get traction.
Exactly. Stuck in a muddy ditch on a county road, number 435. An immobilized car in a place like that. It's an instant crisis. Your whole situation changes in a second. You're stranded.
And she wasn't alone. This is where things immediately get complicated and suspicious.
Mm-hmm.
The reports say she was with three men that day. And their actions, what they say happened right before and right after she vanished, that really forms the foundation of one of the major theories in this case.
The foul play theory. It begins and ends with those men.
So let's focus on the timeline. We have to start with the account given by one of her companions, because his story is the official version of events, at least at the beginning.
Right. It's the baseline timeline that everything else is measured against. He claims that he left Lauren at the stuck vehicle.
And why did he leave her?
Well, his stated reason was to walk to his property, which he said was nearby, to get a tractor or maybe a chain, something heavy to pull the car out of the ditch.
Okay, on the surface, that seems logical. It's a practical solution to the problem.
It is. It's what you probably do in that situation. But here's where the timeline just compresses and collapses into panic.
The man's key statement is that when he got back, she was gone.
Just vanished. In the few minutes he was supposedly gone, she had disappeared into the woods.
And that just, it doesn't quite sit right, does it? Why would you flee? Why wouldn't you just wait for the person who's gone to get help?
You wouldn't, not unless something terrifying happened in that small window of time. She didn't just wander off. The evidence suggests she fled in absolute panic. Something or someone triggered that flight.
Which is what makes the next two communications so vital. They happen right after he supposedly leaves her, and they paint a very, very different picture.
They absolutely do. The first is a private call Lauren makes to her mother, Tori. This is just minutes before she calls 911.
And this call is pivotal because it introduces another person into the narrative.
Yes. Tori, the mother, reported very clearly that she heard a man's voice in the background while she was on the phone with Lauren.
Not just a voice, but a voice giving a command.
A command. He was telling Lauren to get off the phone. That one detail is huge. It completely undermines the idea that she was left alone at the car.
It suggests she was being controlled. Intimidated, maybe? That the situation went from being stranded to being a hostage situation, or at least a confrontation very, very quickly.
And if you just follow that sequence of events, the car is stuck, her companion says he leaves, and then suddenly there's a man ordering her off the phone with her mother. It's an escalation, a rapid, terrifying escalation.
And then come the last words she ever spoke to her mom. This is the part of the story that just haunts everyone who hears it.
It's absolutely killing.
She said, "Please tell the kids I love them and tell Dad I love him and I'm sorry."
That phrase, "I'm sorry," it's such a critical piece of emotional data. We have to really sit with that for a moment.
It's a farewell.
It sounds like a final farewell, doesn't it? It sounds like she believes her life is over. She knows she's in a situation she can't get out of. That apology.
What do you make of it?
Well, in a moment of pure survival, when you're fighting for your life, why apologize? It's so reflective. Is she sorry for what's happening to her right then? Sorry for worrying her family?
Or is it something deeper? The public speculation was that it was an apology for, lifestyle choices that might have led her to be in that car with those people on that road.
It could be a moment of profound regret right at the very end. It suggests she was conscious enough to feel that even in the middle of this terror. It's an incredibly powerful and ambiguous statement.
And immediately after that call ends, the terror just goes to the highest possible level. At 2:24 p.m., she dials 911.
And she stays on that call for an agonizingly long time, over 20 minutes. The dispatchers who took the call, they documented that she sounded completely terrified, but they also used the word disoriented. She kept repeating that she was being chased.
And not just chased.
No, that they were shooting at her. This isn't just a brief cry for help. It's a sustained 20-minute audio document of someone believing they are being hunted down and shot at.
And the tragedy is just compounded by technology failing at the worst possible moment.
Her cell phone battery died mid-call. It just cut out.
And with it, any chance of tracking her location in real time?
Right. They had some initial pings. They knew the general area near that county road where the car was. But once the phone went dead, that was it. The trail went cold. It's horrifying to think how different this might be if that battery had lasted another 10 minutes.
So police get this call. An active shooter situation, a woman being chased through the woods. The response must have been huge.
Immediate and robust, you have to assume. They get to the scene and they find the car, just as described, high-centered in the ditch.
And they find one piece of physical evidence right away.
A single shoe near the car.
A single shoe is always such an ominous sign, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. It's a classic indicator of a struggle or of panicked flight. You don't lose a shoe if you're just walking away. You lose it if you're running for your life, scrambling through difficult terrain. It reinforces the idea that she left that car in an absolute hurry.
But then, here's where the case's central contradiction just slams into you.
This is it. The fork in the road.
Despite the urgency of that 20-minute call, despite knowing the general area from the phone pings, law enforcement couldn't find her.
They couldn't find her. And the sheriff at the time, when he's analyzing everything, the scene, the audio from the call, he described her as sounding disoriented and confused.
That assessment is so important. That one official observation right at the beginning is what opens the door to the other theory.
It immediately injects doubt into the narrative. It questions whether the threat was external at all.
I have to push back on that, though. If you're being chased and shot at, you're going to sound disoriented and confused. Fear does that. Panic does that. How can you dismiss the threat just because she sounds afraid?
That is the investigator's dilemma, 100%. But they were basing their assessment on what they didn't find. And this is the crucial point.
The shell casings.
The missing shell casings. For all her frantic, sustained claims of being shot at, they found zero physical evidence of gunfire. No casings on the ground, no bullet holes in the car, no impact marks on the trees, nothing.
So you have the sound of pure terror on one hand.
And the sound of complete silence at the crime scene on the other. That absence of evidence is what defined the next 3 years of this case. It created this fundamental conflict. Was she running from a man with a gun, or was she running from a ghost in her own mind?
And with Lauren missing, that conflict just becomes the entire story. The investigation, the public, everyone was just stuck between these two completely opposing ideas for years.
It's what happens when you have such a massive factual vacuum. The emotional evidence, that 911 call, it becomes so powerful that almost outweighs the lack of physical proof. So you really have to explore both theories as if they are equally possible.
Okay, so let's walk through them. First, you have Theory A, foul play.
This is the theory that says, yes, the threat was real. Lauren was being pursued, probably by one or all of the men she was with, or maybe by someone else they encountered out there.
And the evidence for this is almost entirely auditory.
It is. It's the raw, undeniable panic in her voice on that 911 call. And critically, it's that man's voice her mother heard, telling her to get off the phone. That points directly to an external human threat.
But what about the missing shell casings? If they were shooting at her, where's the proof?
That's the weak point of the theory. But you could argue the threat wasn't literal gunfire. Maybe they were just trying to terrorize her, firing a weapon in the air, or maybe the threat was something else entirely, a knife, a physical assault, and in her panic, her brain translated that into gunshots.
The fear would be just as real.
The fear would be absolutely justified even without a gun.
Okay, so then on the other side, you have Theory B, a medical or psychological event.
Right. This theory suggests Lauren was experiencing some kind of acute psychotic break. It could be stress-induced, it could be drug-induced, but the result is a state of intense paranoia where she genuinely believes she's being hunted.
And this is supported by the sheriff's description of her as disoriented, and more importantly, by the complete lack of forensic evidence.
Exactly. It explains everything. It explains why she fled into the woods, why she lost a shoe, why she was terrified, and why there were no shell casings or attacker footprints. The attacker was internal.
It's just so hard to reconcile that with the audio. When you hear that level of fear, your instinct is to believe the threat is real.
Of course. And for her, in that moment, the threat was absolutely real. That's the nature of psychosis. The brain creates a reality that is just as vivid and terrifying as the physical world. She was running for her life either way.
Which brings us back to the only other people we know were there. The three men.
Their testimony, their reliability is just paramount. But it's also immediately suspect because they're the ones who were with her last.
Naturally, they were the focus of the investigation right away. All three were questioned extensively.
And this is where some details started leaking out that really fueled public suspicion.
The polygraph.
The polygraph. We have the report that one of the men failed a polygraph exam. We also know that one of the three has since passed away.
Now, we should be really clear about polygraphs. They are not reliable lie detectors.
Not at all. They aren't admissible in court for a reason. They measure physiological stress, heart rate, breathing, sweat, things that can spike if you're nervous or angry, or even if you're just uncomfortable being questioned by police.
But in the court of public opinion,
a failed polygraph is a confession. It doesn't matter what the science says. For the public, it signals that the police suspected this person was lying and the test confirmed it. It pours fuel on the fire of the foul play theory.
And you also had a change in the sheriff's department, which seemed to change the official tone.
Yes. The initial administration, sources said, seemed to believe the companions weren't directly involved. But when a new sheriff, Cutter Clinton, took over, the new administration became very tight-lipped about the men.
Suggesting they were taking a fresh look at them as potential suspects?
It suggests they weren't taking anything from the old investigation for granted. And that official silence, combined with the lack of evidence, created this perfect storm for rumors and online speculation to just run wild.
Which brings us back to her last words to her mother, "I'm sorry." How do these two theories interpret that statement?
They interpret it in completely different ways. Under the foul play theory, she's apologizing for the situation she's in right now. I'm sorry I got in this car. I'm sorry I'm putting you through this. I'm sorry for this terror.
An apology for the immediate peril.
Exactly. But under the psychological event theory, the apology might be much deeper. It could be tied to an overwhelming sense of guilt or shame that might have even triggered the paranoid episode. An apology for a lifetime of choices that led her to that moment.
It's a question that's impossible to answer. If you're running from a real attacker, would you pause to apologize for your past? It feels less likely.
It deepens the ambiguity, doesn't it? It's a moment of profound reflection in the midst of what should be pure, unthinking survival instinct.
Let's turn to the search itself. For 3 years, Lauren Thompson was a missing person, and it wasn't for lack of trying to find her.
Not at all. The 2019 search was massive. It was exhaustive. You had local teams from other counties, cadaver dogs, high-tech thermal imaging from helicopters and planes. They threw everything they had at that small patch of woods where her phone last pinged.
Yeah, and they found nothing.
For 3 years, they found absolutely nothing. She was gone.
Until July 2022. And the discovery wasn't made by law enforcement.
No, it was a work crew. A crew clearing some dense land in that same part of Panola County. They stumbled across human skeletal remains.
And in December 2022, dental records confirmed the worst. It was Lauren.
Right. And at that moment, the case officially shifts. It's no longer a missing person case. It is now an active death investigation.
But the discovery of her location, while providing a devastating answer, created a whole new set of impossible questions. And this is what I call the location paradox. Her remains were found in the same general area that had been searched so extensively back in 2019. She wasn't miles away. She was right there.
Which forces you to ask two equally disturbing questions. The first one is, was she there the whole time? Did all of that technology, all of those trained searchers and dogs somehow miss her?
Is that even possible?
It is, unfortunately. We have to remember the terrain. East Texas woods are incredibly dense, thick undergrowth. Thermal imaging needs a line of sight, and once a body cools to the same temperature as the environment, it's invisible. A body hidden under a thicket could be missed, even by dogs, if the wind isn't right.
Okay, so that's one possibility. The tragic failure of the search. What's the other?
The other is that her body was moved there later, that she was killed elsewhere or died elsewhere, and someone moved her remains into that area after the main searches were over.
And both of those possibilities are deeply troubling for the investigation.
Deeply. One suggests incompetence in the search, the other suggests a cover-up by a killer. The simple fact that a random work crew found her years later, it just highlights how difficult these searches really are, and it fuels public distrust.
So with her remains found, the focus shifts to cause of death. But that's where the 3 years in the woods creates another huge evidentiary problem.
A massive problem. Because the remains were skeletal, determining an official cause of death is incredibly difficult. Any evidence of soft tissue injury, strangulation, for example, or a stab wound that didn't hit bone is gone, lost to decomposition.
So unless there's a clear bullet hole in a bone or a catastrophic skull fracture, it's almost impossible to say for sure if she was murdered.
Exactly. Without that clear smoking gun on the bones themselves, you can't definitively rule out other causes. A sudden medical event, like a heart attack, fatal exposure to the elements, or a drug overdose, those all become forensically plausible.
Which keeps Theory B, the psychological event, very much alive.
It does. But then, in January 2023, there was another strange development. Investigators went back to the site where she was found.
Months after the initial discovery.
Months later, and they announced that they had found additional items of evidence.
What does that suggest to you, finding more evidence so much later?
It suggests the scene wasn't fully processed the first time, which can happen in the urgency of a discovery. But more importantly, it means they went back with a new focus. They weren't just recovering remains, they were looking for context. These items could be anything. Fragments of clothing, personal effects.
Something that could link her or a potential suspect to that specific spot.
Precisely. They are looking for those crucial threads to tie the story together. But we, the public, have never been told what those items were.
So let's circle back to the 911 call, the paradox that started it all. If she was really being shot at, why did none of the neighbors report hearing gunfire? This is a rural area, but it's not the empty wilderness. There are houses.
That silence from the community is incredibly powerful negative evidence, isn't it? It really lends a lot of weight to the idea that the gunshots were an auditory hallucination. It's the simplest explanation for why no one else heard a thing.
The only way the foul play theory works here is if the threat was silent, or if it happened so deep in the woods the sound was muffled.
Which is possible, but it requires adding more layers of speculation. The absence of noise complaints from neighbors, it just weighs very heavily on the side of a psychological event.
So where does that leave the case today, as we're talking now in early 2026?
It remains an active death investigation with the Panola County Sheriff's Office. No arrests have ever been made.
Which tells you everything about the state of the evidence.
Well, it tells you they don't have enough to meet the burden of proof for an arrest, let alone a conviction. They have a terrifying audio recording, and they have skeletal remains with an undetermined cause of death. There's a huge gap in between, and that's where reasonable doubt lives.
So what's the ultimate takeaway here?
I think the biggest takeaway is about the danger of assumption. When you have a case this fragmented, with emotional evidence on one side and a forensic silence on the other, you have to resist the urge to just pick a side.
To assume it was foul play or to assume it was paranoia.
Right. Because the moment you commit to one theory, you risk closing your eyes to evidence that might point in the other direction. You have to hold both possibilities in your mind at once, as uncomfortable as that is, and just follow the few threads of actual evidence you have.
The story of Lauren Thompson, it's just so tragic because she feels trapped in that ambiguity.
She does. The questions from that 911 call, the terror in her voice, that apology, what was chasing her, that's what lingers. It's so much more powerful in the public memory than the incomplete, unsatisfying facts of the eventual discovery. She's forever on that tape, running from something.
It's a case that really makes you wonder how much of the truth we can ever really know when it relies on physical evidence that's been lost to time, and how much our perception is just permanently shaped by the sheer desperation we hear in those final minutes. The real story might be lost to those woods forever, leaving us with just the echo of her fear.
Thank you for walking through this very difficult and complex case with us.
Join us next time as we explore another case shaped as much by online speculation as by verifiable evidence. A closer look at the story of Elisa Lam and what the internet got wrong about her final moments.
We'll see you then.